to start. So I'm Ann Church. I'm with Villages of Santa Fe, and our lecturer today, which a lot of you know, is Ambrose Ferber from the Santa Fe Prep. And we've been doing this series since 2016, but we did have to morph over to online things. So we're hoping maybe next fall we could go back to in-person events, which that means it's a one-on-one. You get hooked up with a kid who actually knows what's going on. So anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Ambrose. So today is cutting the cord.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Ambrose Ferber. I am the Associate Director of Technology at Santa Fe Prep. I'm also the chair of the Computer Science Department. And this has always been a very popular lecture because a lot of people are, the landscape has really changed as far as how we can consume media and how we access the world, and all of this stuff has really changed. And a lot of people are still spending a great deal of money so that they don't necessarily need to spend. So this particular lecture is going to be focused a lot on identifying your needs, identifying where you want to be, and how we can probably save you a whole bunch of money every month. And also there is sort of a certain cachet, a certain aesthetic with cutting the cord. It's what all the cool kids are doing. So we are definitely gonna jump into that. So without any further preamble, let's go ahead and jump into this. And I need screen sharing.
I also, while I do a screen share, I just want to let you know that this will screen share. There you go. This will be up on, this recording will be up on our site, villagesofsantafe.org, tomorrow afternoon.
Yes, indeed. All right. Okay, so let's start with the internet, mainly because the internet is sorry, excuse me. I think is my audio kind of soft for everybody, or is it pretty good?
It's showing a big thing on the internet, but not your picture.
No. I mean my audio. Like, can everybody hear me okay?
It's fine.
Okay, that's fine. All right. I was just noticing my meters were a little low there. All right, so we're going to start by talking about the internet, because all of the other things that we are, not all, but many of the other things that we're going to talk about are dependent on your internet connection. And I also want to make sure that everybody understands what's going on with your home internet, so that you can be a more informed and capable consumer, and also to make sure that you have the right amount of internet, the right speeds and the right form and all of that, to make sure that you are getting all the performance that you're going to need if you want to cut the cord, and also that you're not necessarily going off the other end and paying for a whole bunch of internet that you don't need. So I would like to review quickly a little bit of something that we talked about a few weeks ago when we were talking about buying a new phone. For those of you who were here, this is for that lecture, this is a little bit of review. For those of you who were not here, we're going to touch on some key concepts here, because it's important that you understand the difference between home internet, Wi-Fi, and mobile internet, because those things are all different and they come from different places. They cost different amounts of money, and people have a tendency to really conflate those three things all together. We're not going to spend as much time on this as we did last time, but mobile internet comes from these big cell towers that you see up all over town. There is some move, incidentally, to using these microcells, like more small things up everywhere instead of fewer giant towers, because people object to these giant towers a lot. They don't want them in their neighborhoods. They don't like the way they look. So people object to them quite frequently. And so there is a shift to maybe trying to do something that's less obtrusive than these. But anyway, your mobile internet, like the internet you get on your phone, comes from these big towers. And we call that mobile data. Those towers also give you phone service, so phone and text service. so that you can get your calls and your text messages and everything. But that mobile data provides all of the internet services on your phone, like email and maps. And if you surf the web, do video chat, any of that, you can access those internet services via mobile data, which goes over those big giant cell towers. However, your phone can also connect to the internet over Wi-Fi. So that might be at home, it might be at work or a cafe, library, anywhere where there is Wi-Fi. You can access the internet, access internet services on your phone or on any other internet, or I should say Wi-Fi enabled device. The difference between these things is really important. Just gloss over this really quick. This is from that previous lecture. The phone service is usually free. Like that's just included. They want you to pay for the data, not the voice calls or the text messages, right? You don't have to pay much more for that. But if we look here at the difference between mobile data and Wi-Fi, it's important to see that mobile data generally costs more than Wi-Fi. Like the Wi-Fi, the cost per megabit is a lot more when we're talking about mobile data as opposed to Wi-Fi. And mobile data tends to be a little bit slower, and Wi-Fi tends to be a little bit faster, a little bit more robust. But of course, mobile data is more mobile, right? Like you could be driving around town and be accessing internet services, whereas Wi-Fi is pretty short range and you're locked into your home, your work, your cafe, or wherever it is that you're getting that Wi-Fi from. Now, both of these things are wireless. And that's, I think, part of the reason that people conflate these two things so often is that it's sort of like wireless internet. But they are very different things. One comes from those giant towers, one comes from a wireless access point somewhere in one of these locations, usually in a building. Now, here's where things get more confusing for people a lot of the time, which is people think of the Wi-Fi as being the internet, when in fact it's not. The Wi-Fi is just a wireless connection between a device and another device in that building. For instance, I'm going to move this camera around. If you can see my screen instead of the shared screen, but look at the camera one. If you can see this up here on my roof, on my ceiling, there's this white box in my classroom sitting up on the ceiling. The Wi-Fi that I am currently using on this computer, that Wi-Fi only connects my computer to that white box on the ceiling. You probably have some kind of wireless box in your house, right? And that box, the Wi-Fi is only from your device, like your computer or your phone, to that box. Your internet connection is something that goes outside of the house. In most cases, that's going to be some kind of wire that goes through the wall. Like that box in your house is probably plugged into the wall, and there's a wire that goes there, and then it goes outside the house and it goes out to the street somewhere. Most of you. Some of you may have some other situations, but for the most part, most people, there is a wire that goes from the house out to the street where it connects to a big trunk that goes down to Albuquerque, and then from there to this clearinghouse in Denver, and then to the rest of the internet from there. You don't need to know about all that other stuff, except to know that your internet connection is not the same thing as your Wi-Fi. So let's talk about the actual services that come into your house. And these are 4 sort of typical ones that we see here in town. There are others, there are some other places, there's some other methods, but these are the main things that we would see. The first 2 being the most common, the second one there, Xfinity, being the most common here in Santa Fe. The vast majority of people here in Santa Fe will have Xfinity cable internet. Some of you might have a DSL connection through CenturyLink. And there may be some of you who are extremely fortunate to live on one of the couple of small corridors in Santa Fe that provide fiber internet, fiber optic internet. And there are a couple of companies that resell that. And that is super, super fast. Probably nobody here has fiber optic internet, but you might. The important thing to take away from this chart here is that these are what are called ISPs, or internet service providers. And these are the people who bring the internet to your house, again, usually via some kind of cable. And you'll note that the second two here, Starlink and NM Surf, those are both wireless connections between your house and some other entity. But even though that connection is wireless, there is some kind of infrastructure on your house that accepts that and then again brings a wire inside the house, and then there's a box inside your house that's plugged into that wire. And that wireless connection is not the same thing as the mobile data on your phone, nor is it the same thing as the Wi-Fi that you find inside your house. So as I said, the most common is Xfinity. And Xfinity provides, for most people, what's called cable internet, which is the same kind of cable. When we say cable, it's the same cable as cable TV. It's that same thing. And often, in fact, many people have a package deal that gives them cable TV and internet, and potentially even also phone service on that same cable. And their prices, they have a couple of different packages, deals and stuff. But if you're looking at just internet alone, just cable internet, it's like 20 bucks or 50 bucks for 50 megabits per second or 200 megabits per second. We're going to wave our hands a little bit right now at what megabits per second actually means, like what that specifically measures. Because you don't really need to know, and everybody sort of uses the same measure. So it's okay for us to just compare those numbers to each other. And it would be a very long lecture if we got into what megabits per second actually means. If you're curious, of course, you can talk to me afterwards or send me an email or something. I'd be happy to explain what that unit of measurement is actually measuring. But in any case, Xfinity cable internet is usually between 50 and 200 megabits per second. There are some parts of town that can get faster than that. There are some price variations here and there. And again, if you're packaging it with other things, that price can fluctuate a little bit. CenturyLink provides DSL. CenturyLink is most known for being like a home phone provider here in Santa Fe and throughout New Mexico. But they also can provide DSL, which is digital signal line. And that's just another, and that uses basically phone lines, the same thing as regular phone lines, to provide broadband internet service. CenturyLink also does operate fiber, very, very limited parts of Santa Fe and Albuquerque. I don't know where things are in other towns. Albuquerque's and Rio Rancho, I think there's a fair bit. I don't know exactly, but it's not like it's not ubiquitous anywhere in New Mexico to get fiber. But they charge like 50 bucks a month for about 100 up to 100 megabits per second, and 65 a month for fiber if you're lucky enough to get that. And fiber is very, very fast. I do want to speak quickly about Starlink. I don't know if anybody saw, I don't know, it was like a week and a half ago or something, especially in the northern sky here in Santa Fe. I don't know what it looked like from other parts of New Mexico, but in the northern sky, there was this crazy looking set of very bright lights in the sky. They looked like very bright stars moving in a line, just like along. Those were Starlink satellites. Starlink is Elon Musk, same guy as Tesla and SpaceX. And the goal behind Starlink is to provide satellite broadband internet to everywhere in the world, so that developing nations that have a really hard time with infrastructure can get broadband internet anywhere, like in the middle of deserts and on top of mountains and in the ocean, like wherever. But it's also just, anybody can get it. It's a little expensive to get into. It's like a $500 outlay of cash at the beginning to get the equipment, and then it's $100 a month. But it's shockingly fast. and has low latency latency. Latency Latency is just a measure of the amount of delay that you experience when you're trying to send things over the internet, which has previously always been a problem with satellite internet. This solves a lot of those problems. So if you're in a place where you cannot get internet very well at all, like if you know, if you just don't have the options, if you're way out in the boonies or something, Starlink is a great idea, and it is becoming available here in lots of places here in New Mexico now. So go check that out if you are having trouble finding an internet service provider to serve you there. Here in Santa Fe, we've got a couple of people, NM Surf and Cyber Mesa, that do this microwave wireless connection, which is basically an antenna, a directional antenna that connects to another directional antenna and sends signals over this microwave transmission. Before anybody, it's not the same kind of, you know, it's not going to cook birds that fly through it or anything like that. It's not, that's not how it works. It is extremely safe. And if you guys want to talk sometime about the science of all of these wireless technologies and whether or not they're safe, I would love to engage in that conversation with people, because there is a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of mythology about the safety of all of these wireless technologies. So we should definitely talk about that at some point. In any case, this microwave transmission works really well in places that have line of sight to someplace in town, but don't have access to cable or DSL or other, or fiber for sure. My house, for instance, I live in the eastern foothills of above Santa Fe, like past St. John's College, Wilderness Gate area. We do not have cable, we do not have DSL, but I use NM Surf, and it works actually surprisingly well. It is a little bit more expensive, actually, in some cases substantially more expensive than other services. But if you're unable to get service in other ways, it can be a real lifesaver, and it has worked extremely well for us. So the point of this is not necessarily to give you a comprehensive look at all of the internet service providers here in New Mexico, but to give you a sense of the kinds of internet service providers that are available to you. And this, again, this is how somebody brings internet to your house. Once it's in the house, right? Once we have access to the internet to the home, then within the home, we provide Wi-Fi with some kind of hardware. It might look like one of these devices. You might have something probably that looks a little bit more like the one on the right. It might not have antennas sticking up, or it might just be kind of like a big black box that you know, stands upright. That's probably both the modem for the internet as well as the wireless access point. On the left here, I have a picture of Amazon's Eero. There are a few different companies doing this. Ubiquiti, Google has one. The idea here is that you have multiple boxes that you can place around the house to get your Wi-Fi to extend into all of the places throughout the home. This can be really important if you're, especially if you're trying to cut the cord and rely more heavily on the internet and less heavily on things like cable TV. You might it might be a very good idea to be able to extend the Wi-Fi into other places around the house so that you can access different internet services more easily in more far-flung parts of your house or even outside. But again, I just want to stress again that the internet comes into your home via the ISP, and then once it's there, we can use a device like these devices here to provide wireless access to that internet connection within the house to all of your different devices. Got some chats here. Let me go check that out quickly. Oh, this is the Alert Santa Fe, FCC. Oh, yeah. Anne is reminding me that there is an emergency broadband benefit from the FCC that can help families and households get broadband internet. There's like some subsidies and rebates and stuff like that. She'll share this at the end on her screen to get access to that if you need help paying for that. There are a lot of services now to help people get internet because it's becoming such an increasingly important part of everything we do. So, and by the way, cutting the cord, you know, any kind of cutting the cord service or consultation should include an evaluation of the internet in your house. Both the internet that comes to the house, the type of service, the speed of that service, as well as the reach of your Wi-Fi and whether or not extenders or a mesh network like this Eero one or something like that could help you get internet everywhere that you need it in your home or even in your yard. All right. Oops. Let's talk then, since part of that evaluation would be to talk about the internet that's in your house, how much speed do you actually need? Well, if you have 1 or 2 people in the household and you're not trying to stream video or use Zoom or whatever, I mean, clearly everybody here is using Zoom, but I don't know, maybe you're using somebody else's internet for that. But if you don't need streaming services, like if you're really just browsing the web and doing internet and you know, getting on, doing email and getting on the web and doing some research and looking some stuff up, and maybe even a little bit of like YouTube video stuff, 2 to 10 megabits per second is plenty. And you don't need to pay for a whole lot more than that. Of course, these days, finding services down at that low end for less money is harder and harder to do. Most ISPs now kind of start at that 10 megabit per second anyway. If you have 1 or 2 people in the household and you are streaming video, you want to do the streaming video, which we're going to get to here in a moment. But if you want to do more of that and really be using Zoom, or maybe both people are doing stuff at the same time, well, not if they're doing it at the same time, 10 to 20 megabits per second should be fine. If, however, both people want to be streaming stuff at the same time, or you've got a lot of people, or you want to do really high, you know, use the HD streaming services instead of standard definition, you know, like if you're into it, you're going to need over 20 megabits per second. But you don't necessarily need to get into that 100 megabit per second range, that like much more expensive tier of service, unless you're playing, you know, online video games that require a lot, or you have a number of people who all want to stream HD at the same time. Like you can get away with a lot less. People often feel like, oh, I need to get that 100 megabit per second and like in order to do anything. You don't really need it, especially if there's only one person. You can easily, no matter what you're doing, you can definitely be more in that 20 to 30 to 40 megabit per second range, and have everything work just fine and be totally happy and not have a lot of, not suffer a lot of issues or problems with any of those services. So that's internet, right? We just need to make sure that we have the right amount of internet coming into the house, and that all of the devices that we want to have connected to it can be connected to it, and that we're getting, yeah, enough speed to do everything that we want to do. And this chart sort of does that. For the vast majority of people, anywhere around 20 megabits per second is usually probably fine if it's just you. All right, now here's where things start to get fun and interesting. And this is also, incidentally, where most people are most interested in cutting the cord. This is the area that sort of really inspired that phrase, cutting the cord, and where most people are spending a lot of money that they don't want to spend, or really resent their associations with those particular companies and so forth. So let's talk about TV and how you can get TV entertainment, audio visual entertainment in your house for a lot less money, with perhaps just a little bit of effort. There's three basic categories. There is the cable satellite paradigm, which is what probably most of you have. If you're listening to this lecture, there's a good chance that you have cable or satellite TV and you are interested in getting rid of it and saving a bunch of money. There is over-the-air TV. We are definitely going to talk about that because you might be surprised by what I have to say about that. And then, of course, the thing that you've all heard about and probably assumed was the focus of cutting the cord, which is streaming things over the internet. Streaming is just a term that is where instead of like the old paradigm for the way we thought about things with the internet and things like video is that you went somewhere and then you found a video, you downloaded that video to your computer as a file, and then you could open that file and watch it. And certainly that still happens. That's still something that does occur. But the idea behind streaming is that it's sort of more of a live link between your device, like your computer or your phone, and the server that that media lives on. So in the case of Netflix, your computer connects to the Netflix server, and the Netflix server just sort of feeds you that media in a live fashion. It's not to say live in that other people have to be watching it at the same time. Clearly you can pause it, you can binge, you can do whatever you want to do with that media, but it's a connection between you and the server, and that media is streaming over the internet, and you don't ever end up with a file on your computer. You're just watching this thing over the internet. That's the basic definition of streaming. Now, of course, there are some subtleties and differences and things that we'll talk about when we actually dig in here to that. So we'll start with cable and satellite. We'll talk about what that is. The main advantage to cable and satellite is their very large conventional lineup of channels, right? It's sort of what we are accustomed to when we think about TV. Is it's sort of like, oh, we have all these channels, and then you flip through the channels and you watch the things that are on those channels, and and we're all used to all the the different cable channels that are available. Now, it is important to understand at this point that large conventional lineup of channels that the cable company has is the only way to watch some things. There are certain things like live news programs being a big one. I know, like, Maddow is hard to watch in its entirety if you don't have a cable or satellite subscription. Even if you're watching it online, you still need to have an account with the cable company. And if you're at home, you might as well just watch it on cable or whatever. So a lot of sports are hard to get. Fox Sports, that many of those FS, like the Fox Sports channels, you can only get through cable or satellite, or you can watch them online, but only if you have a cable or satellite subscription to watch them. There's like not a great way to get those. And that's kind of shifting a little bit. And there's certainly lots of ways to watch sports without cable or satellite, but certain specific sports are very, very difficult. NFL football being one, Major League Baseball being one. So just be aware that depending on what you want to watch, cable or satellite may be your best option. You might not be able to cut the cord. But we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. Also, there are certain live events that happen that are more difficult to stream, although that is definitely changing now. And and especially with COVID, people have started streaming stuff that they never used to stream, and it's kind of great. Cable can be quite expensive. $60 is about a month, is about the minimum that you can get into it for. Then there might be like older packages or grandfather, but you might be paying less than that. And there might be promotions that will be less than that, but then after a year, it's going to go up to the regular price. And I saw cable packages that were like $150, $200 a month. In fact, I did help somebody some months ago cut the cord. It was like a private consultation thing. And they were paying a little over $200 a month for their cable TV. And that seems like a lot of money to spend on television to me. Part of the reason that people have a hard time with cable TV is that it's all packaged together. Cable companies make a deal with different channels to say, well, or rather those channels make a deal with the cable company, like, well, you can have this channel, but you have to have these other channels too. And then they pass that cost on to the consumer. There's all these inside deals. That's why you can't just be like, I want these 5 channels and leave me alone and charge me like $6 a month for it, for those 5 channels, and we're good. No, they don't like to do it that way. They bundle all of these channels together. They kind of all go as a package, and then you end up having to pay a lot more overall for them. I will say, so a couple of things, your cable or satellite subscription, you can add premium channels to that, like HBO and Cinemax and Stars. That is one way that you can easily spend lots and lots of money by adding all of these premiums to it. I will also say that the providers like Xfinity, they are working really hard to keep people using cable and satellite TV by offering like a lot of new features and like voice remotes and like different interfaces on the TV and stuff. And some of it's kind of compelling. And I want to be sure that you don't cut the cord because you think it's the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do for some people, right? For some people, keeping satellite or cable TV is a better choice for them. And there is nothing wrong with that. If you've heard me lecture before, you know that I am big on people really examining what's right for them, examining what they want and what their goals are, and fulfilling that rather than subscribing to whatever is trendy or subscribing to whatever everybody else is telling them they ought to be doing. For many people, cable TV is still a great option. You get a lot of channels, you get a lot of like interesting features now. You even get DVR, the digital video recording, most of those now, where you can record all that TV and watch it later, and it's all included in the price. We can DVR things in other circumstances as well, but it's maybe not quite as clean as it is with cable or satellite. But that being said, it can be very expensive, and we can definitely save a lot of money. The first way that I like to save money when I help people cut the cord is with over-the-air TV. Obviously, there's no monthly cost. And the thing is that, and so these antenna, like this one that's pictured here, they're very small. There's nothing here for scale. But this thing is maybe 18 inches long, maybe 24 inches long. So very low profile, easy to put up. It's the days of those like giant television aerials with like the guy wires coming out and have to do this whole thing. Don't have to mess with that. These are also inexpensive. They're, $50, $60 for a good one. And, so it's not a terribly expensive thing. It goes up easily. Mostly they withstand the wind. I see Karen there, and I just had to repair Karen's antenna, which got blown over by the wind just recently, went up onto her roof. And it seems to, I drove past there, Karen, the other day, and it seems like it's still up and working, right? Is it everything still good? Yeah, okay, good. And the thing is that, so a number of years ago, the FCC mandated that all television signals move to a digital HD signal, digital high definition signal. And you may remember there's this like whole kerfuffle, like they sold these adapter boxes so that people could use their old TVs, and like all the equipment had to be upgraded, and people were freaking out about it. And nowadays, like if you have a TV that's newer than like 12 years or 15 years or something, it's fine. You don't have to worry about it. it's just like really old equipment that that you might have to adapt for it. But as a result of doing this digital HD signal, like the quality of that over-the-air signal is fantastic compared to the old days, right? Like, you know, and maybe you only had rabbit ears when you were younger. I know that's what we had, was just like I said, a rabbit ears with tinfoil on the ends, and it was pretty bad. And now you point this thing at the Sandias and you get a ton of channels. In fact, more channels than you probably think. I've got a link here. Let's go ahead and open this one for you. Here's a list of all of the channels that we have. This is the Albuquerque channel lineup, but you can, by pointing the antenna to the Sandias, you can get all of these. There's a whole bunch of Spanish channels, all the network stuff, and in many cases, more than one. And there's all these crazy channels, things like this and Comet and My 50 and like all the like there's old movie channels, like channels devoted entirely to like old movies, and channels devoted entirely to old TV. There's even a game network. There's a crafting one. I forget which one. It's one of the channel 5s. Yeah, here it is, Create. And that just has like cooking and sewing stuff and gardening stuff. This World channel is pretty good too. You get like a lot of sort of BBC News and stuff like that on it. There's some religious channels, some home shopping channels if you're into that kind of thing. MeTV, this is the one that has a bunch of old TV. I love old TV, so it's got good stuff on it. This one's pretty fun too, Heroes and Icons. It's like old action movies and stuff. It's pretty fun. And this is everything you can get for free over the air. Like, it's way more than you probably assumed you could get. And it's like I say, it's, and now that being said, I will also say that not everyone in Santa Fe, at least, and again, I'm sorry, I know a lot of people are here from other places around the state, and I keep referring just to Santa Fe. I don't know coverage in many other places in New Mexico. Albuquerque is going to be great, of course. And Santa Fe, most people I work with can get pretty much every channel. Every once in a while, there's something weird, like there's one channel that doesn't come in really well or something. But for the most part, it's been fantastic. Other parts of the state, I don't know as much. I just don't have the experience doing this around the state. But I bet it's probably quite good and better than you think. And the investment is low. For $40, you get yourself an antenna, put it up on the roof, plug it in, and then there's no monthly cost. It's all in HD. It's really quite astonishing to me. Now, of course, you do have to watch ads, but at the same time, it's like a return to the past. There's something, to me, very aesthetically pleasing about this. It's this like nostalgic thing to just put up an antenna and watch TV free over the air like it used to be, right? That's how all TV was at one time, not that long ago, really. I will say that these antenna can be affected by the weather. If there's a particular storms that come through, sometimes you can get some interference on them. But then again, satellite can be affected as well. So it's not like, you know, that necessarily protects you. I'm just going to make a quick mention here of the Channel Master. There's a link here. When you get this presentation on the Village's blog, you can click on that link and go there. Channel Master sells standalone DVRs. So if you're somebody who has cable or satellite and you like to record TV onto a box and then go back and watch it later, Channel Master makes some boxes that do exactly that, except they are designed to work with over-the-air TV. And there's no monthly cost. They're a little expensive. They're like a couple $100, but then that's it. Then you own it and you have it and you can watch stuff on it. And it doesn't cost you anything per month to do that. So yeah, I love over-the-air TV. I think it's great. And I like supporting that idea. And for some people, That's all you need. For many of you, you could cut the cord, you could get rid of your cable TV and just do over the air and pay nothing per month. I'm sure some of you listening right now could do that and be very satisfied. Others, you might want to add something to that. And the thing, well, yes, sorry. Anne's pointing out that I don't want to make that sound like you can get rid of Xfinity completely. You can just get rid of the TV part of your Xfinity and keep the cable internet, or keep the DSL, or keep that. You do need some internet for other things. But as far as the TV, like, you don't necessarily need to replace that. But some of you will want more than you can get over the air. Either you have more specialized needs, or shows you really want to watch, or it's just not quite enough, or you want to be able to binge watch shows without ads, that kind of thing. And for that, let's talk about streaming. This is even this extremely overwhelming and irritating display of streaming services isn't all of them. In fact, as I'm looking at this, I think I left Netflix and Hulu off of here, which is crazy because those are a couple of the biggest ones. There are so many streaming services now, and in fact, it is very nearly, I like to tell people that streaming services right now are basically just reinventing cable TV. It's like they were just going to have a whole bunch of these things, and you're going to pay $80 a month to get all of the different ones, and instead of it all just being in this neat box that you can flip through, now you have to like access them in different ways. So in many ways, it's like worse than cable. There was a kind of what I considered a golden age of streaming, where there was just a couple of streaming services. They had a lot of great content, and you could just be like, take your bill from $80 a month down to $12 a month, and you were happy and satisfied. It feels sort of like that golden age is over. And part of the problem with the streaming landscape right now is that because everybody's wanting to get into this streaming game, and there's all these different streaming services, there is now way more battling over who has streaming rights to certain TV shows, especially older shows or current shows that are not being made by each one of these. So in other words, like when Disney Plus came out, a whole bunch of Disney stuff left Netflix, because Disney's like, well, we don't want people to watch our stuff on Netflix when we have our own streaming service. We want them to pay for our streaming service. So we're going to put almost all of our content there, and very little of it is going to stay on Netflix. And that kind of thing has been going on all over the place. Networks are releasing their own. CBS has their CBS All Access. NBC has Peacock. They're all like diversifying out into these different services, and it's a little bit difficult, and everybody wants their own market share. And again, like if you wanted to like be able to access all the content that everybody is offering, you would easily spend as much as you would on cable, probably more, hundreds per month to get that. And in fact, this is kind of bad for consumers. So how do we navigate this? How do we deal with this problem? How do we mitigate this issue? Well, I think the best thing to do is to alter your expectations a little bit. Again, this isn't for everybody. And if this is not something that sounds good to you, then again, maybe staying with cable is what you want to do. But instead of trying to be able to watch everything that there is out there, we can alter or lower our expectations. We have a couple of different options for how to do this. We can specialize, we can choose and accept, or we can open our minds, or we can do some combination of all three of these things. Specialization when it comes to streaming means that if you have a particular niche interest, right? Like if you really, really, really love British television, then get yourself a subscription to Acorn or to BritBox, right? And then there you go. You have like all the old British television you could possibly stomach. And that would be a relatively inexpensive, actually not just relatively, that would be an inexpensive thing to do. And then you could just forego everything, and that's the thing you want to watch. If you're really into sports, maybe you get Fubo and NBC Universal Sports, right? And then you don't have access to much of anything else, but you got a lot of sports and you can still save a ton of money. The second option to choose and accept is to pick a streaming service, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, pick one, and accept that the content you have is the content that is there. Instead of worrying about all the content you're not getting, accept the content that you do have. And which is not that different really from our old paradigm, right? If you think back to when there were three networks, right? Or maybe 4 networks, 5 if you include PBS, right? Like in my lifetime, TV was like 5 channels. And whatever was on, and you checked the TV guide, and if there was something interesting sounding, you watched it. Or you had a couple of shows that were on and you watched those shows. These streaming services, all of them, every single one of them have thousands and thousands and thousands of different things to watch. A person could not possibly watch everything they have to offer in a lifetime. So you will not want for content. And even picking 2 of them does not break the bank. Picking 2 of them can still be extremely economical compared to a cable or satellite subscription. Fire Stick, I will talk about Fire Stick, Craig. Give me just a couple minutes to get there. The last option we have, open your mind, is to recognize that perhaps limiting yourself to these things is that you might see things that you would never have gone out and looked for, but that end up being wonderful, end up being amazing shows. All of the big streaming services now, like Hulu and Netflix and Amazon, they are all creating their own content now. Netflix Studios, they just opened up in Albuquerque, right? Like they are making some amazing content. And maybe if you're not locked into whatever show it was on cable that you loved and you want to watch, if you're not locking yourself into, well, how do I get that show? But instead, what might I discover? What new thing might I find? That can really help you with cutting the cord. Part of cutting the cord is thinking in terms of, well, do I want to save a lot of money? I might need to sacrifice something in order to save all that money. If I'm not willing to sacrifice those things, perhaps I have to spend the money in order to do so. And that's just the expectation we have to set. As I said, there are things on cable and satellite that you can only see if you have a cable or satellite subscription. And that's just the way it is right now. That may change, but for right now, that is the reality. Also, let's get a little thorough on this, right? Like simplify, be zen about it. Except that maybe you don't need access to every possible bit of content that's out there. Here's a comparison of some of these streaming services. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through these. These are sort of like 4 of the big general purpose ones that are not devoted to a particular network or channel or theme. Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney. Of note, Amazon Prime is interesting because for $12.99 a month, you get access to all the Prime benefits. That's the 2-day free 2-day shipping and Prime Day and other stuff, Amazon Prime Music, plus the library of Prime Video. If you don't want all that other stuff, it's $9 a month to get just the video. And it seems to me like if you're going to participate in the Amazon thing, then just going for all Prime is a pretty good deal, actually. Hulu is less expensive, though they have the really inexpensive one has ads in it. If you want to get rid of the ads, it's going to cost you similarly to some of the other ones. Netflix has this whole tiered thing about the number of devices you can have and what quality it is. The most expensive one is actually a little expensive, but Netflix is doing some pretty amazing stuff with their own content. Netflix still does have DVD service, by the way, which you can add to a plan, which allows you to get DVDs in the mail. Like that was how Netflix first started. And there's a lot of content available on DVD that's not available on anyone's streaming service, just worth noting. Disney Plus is pretty cool, but you can see here, if we were to add all the, like if we wanted to get the content from all of these, we're suddenly looking at like real money. And, so it might be best to sort of specialize and figure out which one you like the best. By the way, this screen and the next couple screens are in no way a comprehensive look at all of the different services. There are so many more. These are ones that replace live TV. You can see the prices here take a big jump up because this is more like, the idea here is replacing your cable subscription with an internet subscription that's kind of the same thing, where you can see all of that content that's hard to get without a cable or satellite subscription, but you can see you pay for it. This is less cutting the cord kind of ideology here and more of just like a paradigm shift about doing the same thing in a slightly different way. It's not really cutting the cord, except maybe for Sling, which has a much more limited channel lineup, but only costs $30 a month. Here's some specialized options like Acorn, BritBox, HBO Max, Peacock. Peacock is interesting. You can see they have like a lot of content on it for free. And it is not bad. Like it's worth taking a look at. That's all NBC and the NBC family of products. So, and I can't forget all of the different channels that are part of that NBC universe, but that's the only content you will get from Peacock. You won't get anything that's like an ABC show on Peacock. And same with HBO. HBO is only things that are on HBO. But it's cheaper to do HBO this way than it is to add HBO to your cable subscription. Food for thought. All right, Craig's question, what is the value of Fire Stick? Well, because we've talked about these streaming services and like getting an account and you pay all this money per month to get access to the streaming service, but how do you actually stream? Well, there's a couple of different ways. One is just on a computer, right? I've got a laptop here on the screen because you can just go to the website on any computer, the laptop, desktop, whatever, and just go to the website and watch that content on that device. However, most of you probably like to sit down in the living room and like in a comfy chair and watch the bigger TV and want to watch these things on a bigger TV. So there are a couple of different ways of doing this. One, in the lower right here, I just have a smart TV. They make TVs now, and in fact, it's pretty crazy how good and large and featured a TV you can get for not that much money. I mean, I guess it's technically, it's kind of a lot, but like $400 will buy you a very large, very nice smart TV that has these services built right into it. And like just a few years ago, that would have been pretty unthinkable. I mean, I'm talking like 60-inch range, like big. These TVs, they just have, many of them now have a Roku built into them. You can also see I've got a Roku over here. It's the little stick thing. It's the top left with the remote and then that like little stick. Fire Stick is basically the same thing as this. It's just one made by Amazon instead of made by Roku. These sticks, they just plug into the TV and they do the same thing as the TV with it built in. Except that you can add it to an older TV that doesn't have that. If you're not in the market to replace your TV, it's a great way to go. And you just plug that thing into the TV and then connect it to the internet through Wi-Fi, most commonly. And you've got a whole bunch of apps on that give you access to these services. It is important that you understand the difference between having the app and the device. Like I could have a Roku with the Netflix app on it, but that will do me no good unless I also pay for a Netflix account. And I have to pay for that account, that monthly account through Netflix. But then once I've paid for that account on Netflix, I can watch it on my TV with my Roku. I can watch it on the computer. I can watch it on my phone. I can watch it on any of my devices with the one account. But the app doesn't give you access to Netflix. Just because you buy a Roku and you fire it up and you see that Netflix app there, you don't have access to Netflix unless you also pay for the Netflix account. This trips a lot of people up. And pretty much all of those are the same. I will say all of these streaming devices like Roku, like different smart TVs, like the Apple TV, which I've got shown up here as well. All these devices also come with apps that have free content. Apps like Tubi and Crackle and Crunchyroll and all of these like very bizarrely named apps that include a bunch of, and granted, you're not going to see Modern Family on one of these apps. You're going to see some very strange, weird, off the beaten path kinds of movies and TV shows. But again, open your mind. Let yourself experience something new, perhaps. You might love it. Do I need a Roku stick with a smart TV? No, if the TV is able to have the Netflix and Hulu apps on it, and the TV is smart and the TV can connect to the internet, then no, you absolutely don't need the Roku stick. All you need is the TV. The Roku stick is good for a TV that doesn't already have that capability built in. If it's an older TV or a TV that you just, there are definitely people make modern TVs. You can buy a brand new TV today that isn't smart, that doesn't have all this internet stuff baked into it. But yeah, you don't need a Roku stick. You don't need an Apple TV. You don't need a Fire Stick if your TV is already a smart TV. Okay, I am running short on time. So let's jump into phone very quickly here. This is a quicker conversation than TV. But TV is the big one, right? That's the one people spend the most money on, and they feel like they could maybe get rid of it and replace it with something else. And yeah, absolutely, we can save you a couple $100 a month. But phone is another thing that we should talk about. A lot of people still have landlines because their mobile service at their house is not good. So we can sort of solve that. Well, first, let's take a look at the costs, because landlines are not inexpensive. CenturyLink can charge you up to $85 a month for a phone service, which is crazy. Xfinity is down at $20 a month, which is great, except that Xfinity that price requires that you have other Xfinity services like cable TV or cable internet. So that's not like exactly a standalone price. Windstream has this service called Kinetic, $40 to $60 a month. There is a community phone service you may have heard about. It's like $15 a month. That just uses your internet, though. It's not. And also, landline services are famous, and actually your cell phone probably does this too, famous for all of those extra charges. Like you look at the bill and it's like, oh, $30 a month. Wait a minute. And then there's like FCC access, telecom access thing, and then like this tax and that tax, and it adds up to like an extra $15 or whatever. You're like, what is that? It is important to know that almost none of those charges are actually mandated by law. There's there's an FCC access fee, but it's very tiny, and sales tax. That's all that they have. But these companies lobbied legislators to let them charge these extra fees so that they could advertise lower prices, but then jack up the price on these fees. It's a complete scam. Anyway, landlines have a bunch of, so these prices here don't even include all of those taxes and fees. So let's quickly talk about, this is also from a previous lecture. I can't spend a lot of time here now. Know that in the United States, there are only 4 cell phone networks: T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, and US Cellular. Sprint merged with T-Mobile last year. There are now only 4 networks. That's it. All the others are what are called MVNOs, and they just use these other they use these other networks. So all the like your Crickets and your Mints and everything else. So you have to look at the fine print to find out. And when you have this presentation, you can see there's a link here that you can see a chart of all of them. If you have a landline, because your cell service is not good, how do you get rid of phone access charges? You cannot get rid of phone access charges. The way to get rid of it is to lobby your Congress critter to get this stuff changed so that they can no longer do that. That they have to, that the only thing they could charge is maybe sales tax on top of the bill. But when they advertise a price, that's the price. That's the only way you can get rid of it is through legislation. We have to change this. Go donate some money to EFF, to the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They fight those battles all the time. So that's how. Or getting rid of the service, right? Like if you don't need your CenturyLink landline anymore because we fixed it with some other stuff that we're about to talk about, then you can get rid of those charges that way because you no longer need your CenturyLink landline. If your cell service isn't good, you might want to take a look at this chart and see who has the best service. Now this, again, this is biased towards Santa Fe. That's where I did most of my research. Verizon used to be the best, but it's no longer, not here in New Mexico. T-Mobile is here in New Mexico, especially here in Santa Fe, especially because they have Sprint's network, and as that gets even more so, it'll get even better. US Cellular, if you have a US Cellular phone, that might be a big part of your problem if you're having trouble with your mobile phone. Coverage is not good in New Mexico with US Cellular, or if you have an MVNO that uses US Cellular. I forget which ones they are. To fix, so if that doesn't fix it though, if your mobile is still not working, you can look into a couple of things. One is Ooma. Costs $100 for this box. That's that white box over on the right-hand side. And that white box connects to your internet connection. And then any regular landline phone that you have, like cordless, corded, whatever. I've just got some Panasonic cordless phone here, but it could be anything. It could be like a lips, one of those lip phones or whatever, like hamburger phone. It just plugs into that white box there, like any regular phone would plug in, and it provides you phone service using your internet. You do need to have fairly robust internet for this to work, but the basic plan, which includes a lot, is free. All they charge is the taxes and fees, but these are legitimate taxes and fees. And back when I had Ooma still, we used it for a long time at our house. It came out to about $4 a month for the taxes and fees. That's it. And then even if you want their premier level, which is like all the bells and whistles, it's $10 a month. It works really quite well. We were big fans of Ooma. The reason I don't have Ooma anymore has nothing to do with whether or not it was a good service. It does work with 911. That is a very particular thing that they allow. Yeah, Ooma was great. That's a great way to get rid of your landline. Another great way to get rid of your landline is to use Wi-Fi calling, which is similar to Ooma, except that it's just a combination of your phone, your mobile phone, your cell phone, and your cell phone service that can allow you to use Wi-Fi. Now, to do this, I didn't go into very much detail here because it's kind of a complicated landscape. And if you would like to do this, we should do it one-on-one. Pretty much every service now offers some form of Wi-Fi calling. And incidentally, it also uses that you can send text messages, send and receive text messages over Wi-Fi. So even if you have zero mobile data, or I should say zero mobile signal strength, like your little thing is like X'd out and like no service, says no service on your cell phone. If you have Wi-Fi, you can still send and receive phone calls and send and receive text messages. The best implementation that I have yet seen of Wi-Fi calling by far is Google Fi, which we have talked about in other lectures, and we can talk more about that again another time. Google Fi does have some serious restrictions in that, like, you can't really use an iPhone with Google Fi. You can, but you don't get things like Wi-Fi calling and other cool stuff that make Google Fi worth doing. So that's a big no-go right there for a lot of people, is the lack of iPhone. But if you already use Android, or you're willing to switch, or you don't care, Google Fi can be a fantastic route to take. Cool. All right, we're a few minutes over time here. I'm just going to close up the lecture part by saying that I do offer a cutting the cord service. It's just by the hour. It includes an initial consultation where I'll come, see what your situation is, see what all the things are, have a conversation about what you want to do. We'll take a look at some bills, make some determinations. Then I will create a shopping list for you, and based on that conversation. And then once that shopping list has been purchased, I'll come and install and configure everything. And that's just an hourly service. You can get to me through Ann or Villages if you are interested in that. There will probably be an extra charge if it's outside of Santa Fe. I hadn't really thought about that till just this moment. That is everything about cutting the cord that I have for this particular lecture. Obviously, there are a lot of subtleties and details about how to put together a package. I guess if I can leave you with one thought about cutting the cord, it's that doing so is going to require a measure of flexibility and open-mindedness on your part to do it. But if being flexible, if being open-minded is worth a couple $100 a month to you, then it can be very much worth doing, and saving some money, and being part of the cool kids. So I will now open it up for questions. You can throw them in chat. You can unmute. Let me go ahead and stop my share here, so that I think Ann she was gonna put up something here, and also yeah, there we go. But yes, if you have any questions or comments or concerns or anything, you can put them in chat, or you can unmute and ask your question. Raise your hand if your video's on. I am looking at video now. Yeah, Johnny.
Do the streaming services include local television as well? Is that a stupid question?
It is not a stupid question, even a little bit. And the answer is no, they do not include local. Well, no. So the live TV streaming services like YouTube Live and the Hulu Live, those ones that were like in that $65 range in there, those can include local channels, although it's a little bit wonky. Like it works, but it's kind of strange. But yes, they absolutely do include local channels. My preferred method, though, is a streaming service more like Netflix, with an over-the-air antenna for local channels. That's my preferred arrangement.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Wow, not a lot of questions today. Oop, there's one in chat, maybe.
Yeah, there's
Oh yeah, does Google Fi work when you're out of the country? Yes, indeed it does. And part of the reason that Google Fi, in fact, Google Fi works extremely well out of the country, because Google Fi uses T-Mobile and US Cellular, and well, it did use Sprint. And so T-Mobile has a huge footprint and huge and a very robust sharing arrangement with a bunch of international carriers like Vodafone and other companies like that. So you can almost always find a service that you can connect to when you're using Google Fi, because it's on the T-Mobile network. Internationally, we used our Google Fi phones all through the UK and Ireland and Scotland last year, and it worked flawlessly. And in fact, there wasn't even any roaming charges or anything like that. It was all just regular cell service. It cost us nothing extra to do it. Yes, Ann, I can do that. Let's see, I have a plug-in inside antenna. I get PBS and a bunch of other channels, but not NBC, CBS, etc. The one on the roof will definitely be better, Elliot. Yes, we have here in Santa Fe. I've had a couple of people with some success with the indoor antenna. But once we put one up on the roof, boom, everything came in beautiful HD, with very few exceptions. So yes, it makes a huge difference to have that outside antenna. And again, I just want to stress these outside antennas, they're not like the big, bulky, crazy things that we used to have to put up, no guy wires, and they're not expensive, the outside antenna. And as a benefit, if you already have satellite, then that gives us a great way of putting up those antennae. It gives us like a thing to attach it to, which is awfully nice if you have ever had satellite. And also there's a cable that goes up to the roof if you've had satellite, which means we don't have to run new cable, which is pretty nice. Yeah, Karen.
Could you use Google Fi for local calls when you were in Europe?
You mean like calling people in Europe, local calls, or calling
In the country you're in, yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Now, it was interesting because we had to, we had to dial the international code there, even though we were in Ireland. I
Okay,
had to dial the international code
Right.
for Ireland, which I forget what it was.
right. But
Um,
in the past, you normally had to buy a chip for your phone.
Yeah, no,
So-
it's, well, and yeah, and it depended, and old Verizon phones couldn't because they were on what was called a CDMA network. But now everybody is using GSM or GSM Plus, which is the international standard for mobile data. So
Great.
I saw another question here about, if you had DirecTV or Dish Network for TV, and so you already had a dish up on your roof, and even if you've canceled satellite already, they don't take the dish back. They just leave it there. But the dish is usually mounted on some kind of pole where I can just take the dish off the pole and put the antenna on that pole, and it's super convenient for doing that. If we're getting rid of cable TV and not satellite TV, then we usually have to come up with some way of mounting the antenna up on the roof. That's all I meant by that, Elliot. All right, so Anne has posted up some stuff about up the summer lectures. We are going to one per month over the summer because I will not be around as much, but the topics are there. Should be pretty good. I'd be happy to take other comments on other topics that you'd like to see. Whether we're in person or not, starting next fall, we will definitely be continuing lectures. So Dorinda, I see you have a.
Thank you. I live in Rio Rancho, and do you happen to know of a person who would be comparable to you that I might be able to get?
I don't. I don't really know of anybody. But I don't know, if you buy me lunch or something, I could go down to Rio Rancho. It's not that far.
I make a great lunch.
So yeah, we can talk. You can contact me through Anne and
Okay, thank you.
and get that. Cheryl, I'm really interested to hear that you have a Great Call phone and that you love it. My experience with Great Call was not good at all. I used it for an in-law and a couple of some people's parents. Our experience was not good, but it's good that I'm glad you like it. That's good to know that there are people who have had nice experiences with Great Call. Ellie, you have Xfinity for Wi-Fi and home phone. Okay, so yeah, nothing on the roof. If you wanted to do over-the-air antenna, Craig, is there a link to past lectures? Yeah, I believe on Villages, the same place where this one will be posted. They should all still be up there. From this series. The only ones we have there are the 6 that were in this series because the other ones were in person and we didn't record them. Incidentally, what we will be doing, I assume, is that even if we're in person next year, those of you who are from around the state who are not in Santa Fe, we can live stream those in-person ones as well, so you can still tune in when we do that, even if the Santa Fe people are here in person. Great. It's 1/4 past. Oh, let's see. How to connect over-the-air antenna without satellite. We have Xfinity. Oh, it's fine. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. It's just it just means that in order to put the over-the-air antenna on the roof, we need to come up with some kind of little platform with a pipe in it or something to put the antenna in or on your roof, and run a coax cable from the roof down into your house in some way. And that would be a big part of that would be the initial assessment that we do. If you were to hire me, I would come and take a look and we would figure out how we would do that. That's all I meant, is just that the satellite up on the roof gives us pre-built infrastructure. Like there's a cable already going up there and usually some kind of pipe I can attach to it. Otherwise, we just have to come up with something to hold the antenna up there and run a cable down into the house. So yeah, okay, cool. I'm glad Ruth is excited that we can continue live streaming. Thank you so much. I have enjoyed
Thank
giving these
you.
lectures. It's been a lot of fun.
Hi, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Ambrose.
See you in June for Boomer Tech. Just let us know if there are topics. I think Ambrose has come up with some. We do have them set for the summer, but hopefully we can get back into one-on-one. And I'm hoping that we can figure out, a call feature so you could call in. We can put you in a room, in a virtual room with a student when you have particular questions about your device, which is what we handle on the 101. But thank you all for attending and good to see you. Great. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.